We are live.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of Bangor City Council. Today is Monday, November 25th, 2024. It's 7:30 p.m. We begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask City Assessor Phil Drew to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is the portion of the meeting set aside for public comment for concerns related to city business. Public comment, whether in person or via Zoom, requires a person to state your name and whether you are a resident of Bangor. Obscene, threatening, or overly repetitive remarks will be interrupted and removed, as will disruption and disorderly behavior that interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. The council chair has discretion over the time allowed for public comment. Tonight we will have up to 60 minutes and each person will be limited to 3 minutes. Personnel complaints pertaining to the alleged misconduct of individual employees are handled through a different confidential process and will not be entertained by the council in public. Per Maine law, complaints of misconduct are generally entitled to confidentiality and handled in executive session. The public comment period is for city council members to listen to the public. It is the council's practice not to respond or debate with persons during the public comment period. If a comment requires additional action, it will either be taken up by a city council committee or followed up on by the appropriate city staff member. If you do not live in Bangor or own property in Bangor, please allow those who do live or own property in Bangor to have the opportunity to speak first. If you'd like to offer comment on any item related to city business that does not appear on the regular agenda, you may approach the podium. On Zoom, the public can be recognized to speak by utilizing the hand raise function or on the phone by pressing *9.
I hate going first, but I guess I'm immune to that.
You're just so well prepared.
I don't know about that. I'm gonna look at you, Carol, because that's easiest for me to look at one person. My name is Scott Party, and I'm a
unhoused folks and outreach workers due to negative encounters with folks in positions of authority, such as law enforcement. I've been working with unhoused folks both in a clinical setting at Health Equity Alliance and out in the encampment providing healthcare services with the Options Overdose Response Team. What I want to emphasize today is that we are in the midst of an HIV cluster in Bangor. The cluster response is being coordinated through a number of community partners in coordination with the CDC and state health officials. We are diligently testing and treating as many folks as we possibly can. If there were to be a sweep and we were to see folks experience worse health outcomes, it bears emphasizing that part of these worse health outcomes may either be an increase in HIV transmission and/or morbidity and mortality from untreated HIV, including opportunistic infections. During the City Council workshop on November 13th, Jenna Jones stated that there may be as many as 60 individuals who are not engaging in services. These folks would end up displaced come December 31st. Those are all folks we may not be able to track down for testing and treatment either for some time or at all. If folks leave the city of Bangor with an unknown HIV infection, we risk setting off clusters elsewhere in the state of Maine. In addition to HEAL's syringe exchange program being out of commission, the encampment sweep threatens to worsen the HIV situation in Bangor. It will be extremely tough if both of these things are working against us at the same time. Worsening health outcomes for our most vulnerable neighbors does not ultimately bode well for the health of the greater Bangor community. It's a small town and we are all connected. I sympathize with the fact that y'all are getting calls about resident safety issues from the encampment. However, a study by Cools from 2024 done amongst displaced unhoused folks in Montreal states that the unhoused folks ask that public officials stop using safety as a pretext for evictions. I appreciate that the main keywords used in relation to this encampment closure have been compassionate and humane. An intensification of offering services to unhoused folks is never a bad thing. However, let me be clear. Conducting an encampment sweep during an active HIV cluster is a public health hazard. Conducting this sweep will put our neighbors and our state at risk. I urge you to stop the sweep and let us provide life-saving healthcare to these Bangor residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilor Beck?
Ellen, would you mind sharing those statistics with us via email, counselors@bangormaine.gov?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm Justin Cartier, resident of Bangor. I want to speak on conflict of interest and lack of transparency in our government tonight. The last city council meeting before the election saw a decision to award a right of first refusal to Mr. Beck's nonprofit to build tiny homes. I'm sorry, Mrs. Beck's nonprofit to build tiny homes. The decision that was made behind closed doors in executive session, a decision signed by Deb Laurie before the council even voted on it. I can only speculate as to why it was done this way and why there was no transparency for the voters or the taxpayers or the people living in the homeless camp. Historic Preservation Committee on November 14th. Matthew Whitecamp was needed for the quorum. He revealed that he had a conflict of interest for this hearing, yet they continued on with the hearing and he voted to keep the house with slate shingles at 198 Broadway. Now his company is the only slate shingle company in the city of Bangor, an obvious conflict of interest there. Yet he wasn't recused and the rest of the Historic Preservation Committee did not see it that way either. We also have on the planning board, Reese Perkins, who is a great man. I used Reese Perkins as a building inspector in my days in real estate quite often, actually more often than any other building inspector. He's on the planning board, and his wife Robin is on the appeals board. I mean, I think you can see the conflict there, and even that is a conflict in the charter. And now we have Councilman Tremble, after stating publicly that he would step down if elected to the Penobscot County Commissioner. But now he's stated that he's not going to step down. He even had people by their own admission vote for him to try to get him off of the city council. As I learned in the 4 in-person absentee voting days that are not election days, only November 5th is election day. So it seems the verbiage sometimes is just the semantics that allows things to go through. Because instead of being a man of his word, Mr. Tremble is trying to hold on to that power. Statute 30A, section 52 reads, incompatible offices. A person who holds the office of county commissioner may not at the same time hold either the office of mayor or assessor of a city or be a member of a select board. Is not this our select board? I just hope that we really start thinking about some of these conflicts. Whether it's Dan's or some of these other ones, I hope we start recusing ourselves when there are conflicts. You know, the people of the city of Bangor really deserve better than what they've been getting. There's a lot of great people here, and I really hope you start making some great choices. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I don't want to educate Mr. Cardy on everything, but just on, we had honest, just so you know, we're not a select board.
Yes, I understand you're not a select board. You're a city council. Is
Mr.
that
Cartier,
not
you're no
our
longer at
select
the
board?
podium, and this is not for back and forth discussion. You had your opportunity to speak, and he had his. Thank you.
Okay.
My name's Suzette. I'm a resident of Bangor. I do not work for a nonprofit, and I have nothing to gain financially by speaking here tonight. Bangor has a drug problem, a mental health problem, and a jail problem, which can all lead to homelessness. I grew up in Brewer and went to Bangor schools, St. Mary's and John Bath. I've lived in Bangor for the past 21 years. I can remember the way Bangor was before nonprofits became the primary employers and there was not a prevalent drug problem and the vice trades had not taken over this city. At the last council meeting, people spoke in favor of keeping the homeless encampment open. 13 of those speaking in favor of the encampment staying open live in other towns. 10 lived in Bangor. The majority of them worked for nonprofits who financially benefit from the homeless. Unfortunately, far too many profit from the downtrodden in Bangor and enrich themselves from others' misfortunes. We have too many nonprofit organizations that seem to perpetuate and expand this problem for their own financial benefit and continued employment. A few weeks ago, the homeless response coordinator stated at a council workshop that 75 people from 25 organizations met regarding the closure of the homeless encampment. With 75 people working to help 63 people, it would seem that a great deal could get accomplished. The most beneficial option would be to find a place for the homeless to live or a detox center, reconnect with family if that would be beneficial for them, or find a mental health facility if that would be appropriate. The encampment environment is not healthy. There's an excessive amount of trash surrounding the area. There's a lack of trust and security. The number of police calls and illegal criminal activities taking place are a drain on the police force and other resources. The recent death of a man in the fire at the encampment is more evidence that the encampment should have been shut down months ago. Our biggest problem, which has plagued this city for years, is drugs, which leads to addiction. We have 3 methadone clinics, more than any other city in the state. These are here because they were approved by the city council years ago. Since we have had these 3 methadone clinics, the crime in Bangor has increased. A couple of years ago, it was published in the Bangor Daily that Bangor has the most cases of home invasion. Also, the Penobscot County has the highest rates of overdose deaths. Now with the distribution of syringes for addicts, we have the highest rate of HIV in the state. The taxpayers pay for 4 employees to pick up the needles, and there are 6 people hired by the third-party Street Plus to also clean up the streets. Despite all this money to hire all these people, we still have residents finding drug needles. Portland and Sanford leaders have been vocal about trying to bring back the one-to-one needle exchange program, yet Bangor leaders remain silent. The governor's declared pandemic emergency has ended. Therefore, the one-to-one needle exchange program needs to return, and either the drug user or the person handing out these syringes should be responsible for picking them up, not the taxpayers. The 3 methadone clinics, the needle distribution program, the 30-plus nonprofits, which are supposed to have only made this drug problem worse. If these programs worked, there would be fewer people on drugs, and the methadone clinics and needle distribution program would end. Thank you. I'll continue next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hillary Simmons, live on the Tree Streets. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I am going to speak in regards to Chair Pelletier. You, at the beginning of every meeting, go through your rules and regulations as far as 3 minutes, all taxpayers taxpayers, citizens of Bangor, have the ability to speak for 3 minutes with 60 minutes max. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In it, you also talk about people being vulgar and saying unruly things. Last council meeting, I believe there was a threat that came across that you allowed to come across at the very first person speaking in regards to if you weren't involved with the Jews, then this is pretty much something towards you. You allowed members of the public to speak for longer than the 3 minutes when shutting off Doug Dunbar for 3 minutes. If we're gonna have rules in place, be consistent and transparent with your rules. Otherwise, we might as well throw them out and not have any, because you can't pick and choose who you allow to speak for more than 3 minutes. It's not a personal preference if you know them, if you have a connection with them for a nonprofit or not. It is a professional situation, 3 minutes, 60 minutes across the board. There also was somebody that went after Counselor Fish, also that should have been snipped. I give you, Counselor Fish, kudos for answering it and being the bigger person, but that should have never happened. So again, if we're gonna read these, let's follow them.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Seeing no one approach and no hands online, we will move to the consent agenda.
Minutes of City Council meeting, organizational meeting of November 13th, 2024, and regular meetings of October 28th, 2024, and November 13th, 2024. Liquor license renewals, application for liquor license renewal, malt wine spirits of Utopia Holdings LLC, doing business as Utopia, 96 Hammond Street. Application for liquor license renewal, malt wine spirits of Bangor Motor Inn Corporation, doing business as Bangor Inn and Suites, 701 Hogan Road. Application for liquor license renewal, malt wine spirits of China Harbor Restaurant, Inc., doing business as China Harbor Restaurant, 547 Main Street. 25-004 order authorizing execution of a contract with Lou Silver, Inc., in the amount of $507,071 for Randolph Drive Phase 3 Sewer Improvement Project. 25-005 order authorizing purchase of a plow truck from Freightliner of Maine in the amount of $259,738. 25-006 order authorizing purchase of an aircraft de-icer truck from Global Ground Support LLC for $527,573. 25-007 order authorizing a Commission of Cultural Development grant of $4,000 to Bangor Symphony Orchestra for their music and wellness program. 25-008 order authorizing a Commission on Cultural Development grant of $1,000 to Christopher Packard for reimbursement for supplies and materials for the Bangor Authors Book Fair and Literary Festival. 25-009 order authorizing a Commission on Cultural Development grant of $4,000 to Penobscot Theatre Company for the Maine premiere of Jenny Connell Davis's Metiticus, a Lighthouse Play. 25-010 order authorizing a Commission on Cultural Development grant of $3,000 to Robinson Ballet for dance production titled Stone Soup. 25-011 order rescinding and replacing order item number 24-339 from October 28, 2024, and authorizing the city manager to execute an amended agreement with Maine Public Employees Retirement System. 25-012 resolve ratifying staff action of accepting a donation of 5 trees from Plants Unlimited of Trenton, Maine. 25-013 resolve ratifying staff action of accepting a donation of 105 trees from University of Maine School of Forest Resources.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Move passage.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Seeing no doubt, consent agenda has passage. Referrals to committee and first reading.
25-014 ordinance amending Chapter 165 Land Development Code District Map to rezone a property located at 34 Birch Street from Urban Residence 1 District URD1 to Urban Residence 2 District URD2. First reading and referral to Planning Board meeting of December 3rd, 2024.
Madam Chair, I may have a conflict with this referral to committee.
What's the nature of the conflict?
Jason Fish is my son, the owner of Fish LLC.
Counselor Trumbull?
I move that Councilor Fish has a conflict on the first item.
Second.
A motion, we have a second. Need a roll call vote?
Councillor Beck?
Yes.
Councillor Dean?
Yes.
Councillor Fournier?
Yes.
Councillor Hawes?
Yes.
Councillor Leonard?
Yes.
Councillor Mallor?
Yes.
Councillor Trumbull?
Yes.
Councillor Pelletier?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Do you have a conflict? Yes. Thank you.
25-015 ordinance amending Chapter 165 Land Development Code District to rezone a property located at 74 Allen Street from Urban Residence 1 District URD1 to Urban Residence 2 District URD2. First reading and referral to Planning Board meeting of December 3rd, 2024. 25-016 resolve accepting and appropriating $2,127,000 in passenger facility charges, PFCs, through the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, to provide funding for design, purchase, and installation of a passenger boarding bridge at Gate 11 at Bangor International Airport, as well as PFC application assistance cost. First reading.
Thank you. I believe our ordinance, our code of conduct recommends that you leave the room.
Yes, my apologies, I'm sorry.
Sorry. That's okay. Thank you.
That was my bad, Councilor Fish.
That's okay.
I move to refer these to committee in first reading.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to refer to committee. Seeing no discussion, the items are referred. Thank you.
Council.
Unfinished business.
24-318 ordinance amending Chapter 165 Land Development Code District Map to rezone a property located at 12 Wiley Street from Urban Residence 1 District URD1 to Multifamily and Service District MNSD. Councilor Fournier.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This ordinance will amend the Land Development Code District Map to rezone the property at map lot 021-007 located at 12 Willie Street from Urban Residence 1 District URD1 to Multifamily and Service District MNSD. The total area requested to be changed is approximately 0.15 acres. The applicant and owner of record is Brianna Glidden. This property is within the growth boundary shown in the 2022 comprehensive plan, and the future land use map in the plan shows this property in the urban neighborhood, which consists of medium to high density residential neighborhoods surrounding the downtown and encompassing most of the city's historic residential areas. The Planning Division finds this proposed change to be in alignment with the comprehensive plan. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for ordinance 318.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Questions and discussion on this item? Councilor Hawes?
Could we ask Director Krieg to come up and talk about why this was voted ought not to pass?
Good evening. Ann Krieg, Director of Community and Economic Development. There was a lot of concerns from some of the planning board members at the meeting, concerns with spot zoning, that it would be inconsistent with the neighborhood, and that, we are, as you know, we're going through the process right now of doing a rewrite of the land use plan as part of the implementation of the comprehensive plan. So we're sort of there's two times in planning when things are very awkward, and it's right before your comprehensive plan's done and right after, because everything is still trying to get aligned. And so the zoning isn't aligned yet because we're working on it. So, but this particular application, the planning division felt was in line with what was indicated in the comprehensive plan and had made that recommendation. And spot zoning, if I can speak to that for just a second, there's 3 tests to determine if something is spot zoning. The first, if there is that there has to be some connection to a larger purpose. And in this case, you could make the case that, that this is the year of housing, that we're trying to create housing units where it seems to make sense. And that, of course, is the challenge, is if this makes sense here or not. And the second test is if it conforms, if the application conforms to the comprehensive plan. And then the third test is if there's it's sort of a reasonableness of equal treatment. And so what the planning division did was they prepared a plan, a land use plan, just looking at the density of the area that's in your packet, to kind of show that, the area is a mix of single family and multifamily right now. So, and again, we're going through that process of looking at all of these neighborhoods to determine, what kind of zoning should be in all of these neighborhoods. And in many cases, it's likely that a lot of these areas will be requested to be zoned for multifamily, because that's what's there now. We're trying to bring things into conformity.
Thank you. Councillor Trumbo?
Yeah, on this particular lot, is it currently a vacant lot? Or they want to bring this into conformity with the structure that's there, or they want to expand existing?
They want to add an extra unit. Yeah, and they wouldn't be able to under current zoning.
Question? Yes.
So is the current unit, if I remember correctly, it's 3 and they want to go to 4?
That's correct.
So they're trying to, so right now, there is no 4th unit or 4th tenant that is there.
Sorry to interrupt. but-
You'll have a moment?
Okay, sorry.
Yep, I see you. I promise we'll get to you.
Okay, thank you.
So sorry, let me put my thoughts. So, is there, so one of the things I completely understand where the planning board is coming from this. Because I do have issues with spot zoning as well. That said, we are in a housing crisis as well. I'm wondering if there's a way to, I don't know if this is possible, but is there a way to have a temporary, not a zone change, but allow for someone to have another dwelling in a place that's a zone for 3 units? Is there some way that we can help that person to get more housing in a place despite the fact that it's not zoned properly, or is that just not possible with our current?
You'd have to change the zoning, because even the contract zone allowances don't allow you to go further than what's allowed. So that, yeah, because we looked at that as an option.
Okay.
Councillor Brad?
Was there a public hearing? And if there was there any objection from the public to this?
Not to my knowledge, there weren't any. The chair of the planning board is here, he can speak to that as well, but we didn't get any comments in the department.
Okay.
Councillor Fish?
Is this a situation that I know we've brought up several times in the past year, where it may not be zoned or actually legally operating as far as the city's concerned as a 4-unit, but in fact it has been a 4-unit with 4 tenants, and it's just not zoned properly right now, even though there are 4 tenants? Do we know if there's 4 tenants actually in there?
The application doesn't say that there's 4 tenants there right now, so no.
Can we get that answer from?
Can I answer that? Just a moment, please. You have not been recognized. I would like to make sure we don't have any additional questions for Director Creed before we move on to public comment. Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
sir, if you would like to approach, you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Because I'm just here really to help support a friend of mine, so.
Okay.
But, so Rihanna acquired this property and it has been operating as a 4-unit since the 70s. So that answers that question. And so reality is that if the long-term plan is to increase supply, in this case, it has been operating as a 4-unit since the 70s. And if you do decide to implement the required zoning that is on record for the property, she would be forced to evict a person in a challenging housing environment. So, and she also, based on some of the research prior to acquisition, we approached code and expressed the desire to keep it as a 4-unit. She got approved for $40,000 for a fire suppression system that she has funding for to do that. And then when she took the guidance of the code and the long-term vision of the city, she spent $2,200 to have the opportunity to approach the planning board, and after deliberation, she was told no. And so I was just here to support, thinking that the long-term vision was to support increased supply, and we have a young investor who is spending her hard-earned capital to do that, and then being told no after spending $2,200 of her money to even have the opportunity to present. So I guess my request is that perhaps this would be an opportunity to reconsider, considering the fact that Ann and the city is working diligently towards a long-term vision, a plan. And if you're trying to protect single-family areas, this is not the area. It's within 300 feet of this property. It's 50% single-family, 50% multifamily. There is a boarding house very, very close by. And so I don't see that there's any negative implications to allowing this to proceed. And if you don't, then she will have to evict a 60-year-old lady who's been living there for 20 years, and she will now have to find a new home. So that's really, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
I'm sorry, your name,
That's my
sir?
understanding. Philip Henry,
Thank you.
resident of Bangor, yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, okay, I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Just want to, I don't want to have to evict someone, and I just was confident that it would be allowed just with the housing crisis, so that's all I really have to add.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone, appreciate it.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Is there any additional public comment on this item?
Justin Cartier, resident of Bangor. I do encourage you to approve this. It's currently being inhabited by someone. We can't be putting people out on the street. Obviously, as they stated, it's been since the 70s that we've had people here. They're not trying to add another unit, as Ms. Craig was indicating. That unit is already added. We're just trying to get existing things conforming. And during one of the presentations that Ms. Craig did earlier in the week, last week, we did discuss quite a bit of this at that meeting, and there was a lot of opposition to spot zoning and changing things from URD1 to URD2. But in a situation like this, where you already have an existing tenant, I really do encourage you to approve this. Thank you.
Councilor Leonard?
So seeing as how there's a tenant that is operating as a person who potentially could lose their availability on this, are there protections that we can implement either through the solicitor's office or through community business economic development that can at the very least put safeties on a person who's currently renting with so that person can continue to live without changing the zoning? Is there a way that we can do that, or is the only way to go forward changing the zoning?
The units that are there right now are non-conforming, so they don't go away if you don't approve this. But the building remains non-conforming. And so that limits them if they want to do, an expansion of space or anything like that. So this brings them into conformity.
Okay, and Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have asked Mr. Henry when he was up here, but
I can come back up if you need me to.
I think I can answer it myself. But I typically am not a favor of spot changes. I would prefer there to be protections on this, because my guess is this is going to be something that's going to be approached again at some point in the future, just because we are going to want to expand housing in any way, shape, or form. If this is just going to be something that we're gonna see your face again with the same exact issue, I can be convinced for just this one particular property to do something along the lines of a change, especially considering there is an issue with a tenant's ability to live there. I don't like doing this, but so if there's any other option that we can have besides doing a zone change, I would prefer to do that. But if this is our only option, I don't like to vote against the planning board. I know you guys do a lot of good work over there, but I don't want someone to be at risk to be on the streets, especially if they're a senior citizen. So I'll wait for the other counselors to speak their mind on this though.
Question.
Counselor Mellor?
I'm curious, did we have occupancy permits for 4 apartments? Is there anyone from planning or zone or the code office that can so state? Because as far as I'm concerned, if they don't have occupancy permits, then it's just not allowed. That's the purpose of an occupancy permit.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, we can look it up. Certainly.
Counselor Fish?
I think that we are working on, the problem that's presented to us tonight usually doesn't get this far. A lot of people just don't pursue it, I don't think all the way to council, but this is in the real estate world. It has been an ongoing issue for 20 or 30 years that I know. And it's very, very common that a lot of these older homes are now 2 or 3, 4 units, and it just hasn't caught up. The zoning hasn't caught up. When they go in and do renovations, it's discovered then. So I think that we are, through our committees now, working on amending our ordinances, and I think we are going to address this because we know it's a common thing. I don't think it's a case where an investor or person comes in and is looking for an opportunity to make more money. I think it's been operating. They purchased something that they thought they were getting, only later to realize it wasn't. So I don't think it's an opportunist, an opportunity to spot change for financial gain. I think it's they're trying to come in and just make things right. At least that's my understanding.
Counselor Beck?
I would just say that, we're trying to send the message to developers that we want you to invest in the city. And if you want people to invest in the city, then we need to show we're willing to work with you. It sounds like you did go through all of the channels to do this right, and we need housing. So we would need to consider this.
Counselor Turnbull?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak so much to the facts of this case, more to the process. I generally have a lot of deference to the planning board votes. I mean, they put the time in, they listen to the public comment. Although, as I understand it, at the planning board meeting, there was nobody that spoke against this application. It was a 5-2 vote, not a 4-3, so it really wasn't a very close vote. That being said, I think in this case, if this was somebody that was trying to add a unit, I'd say, I'm going to uphold the planning board. They can wait until we look at the bigger picture and not do this spot. So they've come in, they've applied for it. I think this is an area where that type of zone actually makes sense. So I'm going to vote to approve this request.
Counselor Fournier?
Could this be a conditional use?
No.
Why not?
Well, in the proposed district, it would not be a conditional use. In the existing district, it's not allowed at all. So in multifamily, you can put in, as long as you meet the area per unit requirements, you can, you just need approval by the planning board if it's over 3 units.
Thank you.
Is there additional council discussion? Counselor Haas?
I will be in favor of, excuse me,
I will be in favor of this. I think that the comprehensive plan included a lot of work by a lot of people. And if the planning division finds it to be in alignment with the comprehensive plan, then I'm not going to go against that. So I will be voting for it.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. My understanding is that for council to overturn a planning board decision, it has to be at least 6-3. Is that correct? Okay. Roll call vote?
No, clarification. A vote to approve does what? Just so we have.
A vote to approve is a vote to amend the ordinance as written here. It is overturning the planning board decision.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, roll call vote.
Councillor Beck?
Yes.
Councillor Dean?
Yes.
Councillor Fish?
Yes.
Councillor Fournier?
Yes.
Councillor Hawes?
Yes.
Councillor Leonard?
Yes.
Councillor Mallor?
No.
Councillor Trumbull?
Yes.
Councillor Pelletier?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
Item 24-318 has passage. New business.
25-017, order authorizing contract with New England Waste Services of Maine, Inc. for the disposal of wastewater treatment plant biosolids. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The order would authorize a 3-year contract with New England Waste Services of Maine, doing business as Casella Organics, for the disposal of biosolids produced by the wastewater treatment plant. The plant produces 5,500 to 6,500 wet tons of biosolids annually as a byproduct of treating wastewater. Legislation in 2023 prohibited the reuse of biosolids, requiring a landfill as the only disposal option. The city's contract with New England Waste Services of Maine expired on September 30th, 2024, but was temporarily extended to allow for negotiation of a new contract. Staff explored all possible alternatives and found only one other landfill option would have increased the annual cost by approximately $300,000. New England Waste Services of Maine proposed a rate of $142 per wet ton, or an approximate 4.3% increase over the current rate, and would fall within the approved fiscal year 2025 budget. This item was reviewed and recommended for approval by the Finance Committee meeting on November 18th, 2024. I move passage of order 25-017.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion or questions on this item? Seeing no doubt, 25-017 has passage. That brings us to the end of the regular agenda for tonight. We will close with councillor comments. Councillor Beck.
Good night.
Councillor Dean.
Good night.
Councillor Leonard.
Good night.
Councillor Fournier.
Good night.
Councillor Trimble.
Yeah, I meant to do this at a previous meeting, and I don't think anybody from the group's here tonight. Bangor Beautiful in the last month, about a month or so ago, they this, I think, 3 entry signs to the city, the little concrete welcome to Bangor signs, and they repainted those. Those were put in about 25 years ago, and they were looking a little ragged, so they look much better now. So just thanks to Bangor Beautiful for doing that, and good night.
Thank you. Councillor Haas.
I'd like to just thank the city, let me get this right, it's the electrical department and the public works, right, that do the decorations?
Yeah, the electrical is a division of public works.
Okay, so they have got the decorations up, they look really nice. I'd like to thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Councillor Fish.
Good night.
Councillor Mallard.
Good night.
Me, tomorrow, if you have nothing to do at 11 a.m., you're welcome to join me at the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. I'll be there with Secretary of State, Shanna Bellows. We'll be presenting a proclamation in support of organ donors. As you know, when you get a license here in the state of Maine, you can opt in to be part of the organ donor program that saves thousands and thousands of lives every year. So we'll be doing that at 11 a.m. tomorrow, looking very forward to that. With that, wishing everybody a safe and happy holiday weekend. Looking very forward to the light show on Friday night and the ushering